Okay, so this is not really a proper tutorial, but I'm gonna try something anyway. Um, this is mostly me explaining the gist of it, like every detail, without going into it like too crazily hard. I'll try my best to keep everything in one short video, but very simply, let's start off with the gun. This is the gun. It's a WebM video. It's a WebM video, and it's like it stops on the frame where it isn't shooting, which may have been a very happy accident, but it's very important because it means I can just move this, and if we play it, it'll fire, but it'll go back to the stationary default position. Very handy for saving us the need to have a still image and resetting that, like making it invisible every time we fire, because that means there are chances there will be a duplicate gun on screen. So that's how the gun works. It's just a video with the first frame, or like this last frame, being a stationary position. What else? Exodo move is a very important thing here. We're gonna do a little bit of a planeception here. Do a little bit of planeception here, which I just need to give you context, right? If we go to filters here, you'll notice that, don't mind the rippling effect, but you'll see that the fly center, fly right, and fly left are being like randomly triggered. That's StreamerBot's doing. I'll get to that later. I'll get to that in a bit. But there's also gun, shoot, middle, left, and right. These are the way that StreamerBot moves the gun. So if I just try and give you an example here, if I trigger manually fly left or fly right, essentially what you'd have to do, I'll just try and explain it very shorthand here. To set these is that, let's say you want to set fly center. Now obviously you can see that the source, this is Exodo move plugin, move source on the scene, very important, scene filters. You do move source filter, the source selected is plane flying middle, and what you have to do, so obviously this is called center, you'd have to put it on the center where you want, get the transform, and if you click on the visibility icon, it'll travel back to that position. And then left, you'd have to put it on the left, the transform of the flying source of the plane, and right, and you get transform again, and then you'd click any one of these, and it would correspond, it would go back, the source would go back to its position that you highlighted with the get transform. And the same for the gun, literally no different, it's just moving the gun to the position that you want, corresponding one, and saving it with get transform, and StreamerBot will do the rest with its capability to run filters or like set visibility states. So we'll be grabbing we'll be grabbing StreamerBot here if we can. I will not really be able to show much of the code, some of the very loose code, C# code that happens, but I will probably make more detailed posts, like a more detailed tutorial at some point. But StreamerBot, let's see here. Very simple. We have commands, fire, left, middle, and right. We have a timed action called plane move, which is every 5 seconds. It'll run plane random pause, which is, this is your trigger, timed action. You can't see it, but this is the timed action plane move. And it'll execute this, which it's C# code. I'll probably try my best to make a proper tutorial in the future, but very, very like verbally, it runs one of these: plane center, plane left, and plane right. And if we look in either of them, in any of them, and it doesn't matter which one, plane center will run the, well, like, it will show, it'll make the OBS scene filter states on anti-air scene, the scene that we had the Exodo move source on. The fly center one, it'll make it visible, and the plane will fly visually to the center. But how would we know where the plane factually is in data? That's because we are setting the global plane pause. We're setting a global variable here, plane pause, to the middle value. This is a string. And there's plane left, which does the same thing, but it uses the fly left thing, so it flies left, and it sets plane pause to left. And plane right, it says it makes visible the fly right filter, so it flies to the right. And global plane pause, it sets it to right in data. And your important context is that this is always running. This timed action is repeating. It's enabled. It's always running the random selector of code. It'll make any one of these directions work, even if it like makes it pick the same direction. It'll just keep staying there because it can't really move. And that's how the plane moves. The gun, very simple as well. It does the same thing as the plane, but instead of a timed action, it corresponds to the commands. So, left, middle, right. It causes the corresponding scene filters to be turned on. It'll move there, and it sets the gun pause global variable to the corresponding position, so we have it in data. That's how the gun moves. That's how the plane moves. Now, very important, how it fires. So the fire command plays the WebM, sets a temporary global firing to true, executes codes, which runs fire check. It just it runs it. I had to use that as a workaround because core actions and run action did not. Running an action with the built-in action running in StreamerBot did not work for some godforsaken reason. I'll honestly be exporting this code. I'll export this logic, so you can look for it yourself if you really want to make something out of this based on this really poorly put together video. But it'll wait. You have to finick with this. This is not precise. You have to see how well it lines up. But firing is set to false as soon as it ends, which is roughly what I have calculated here, 1800 milliseconds from when it starts to when it ends. And so obviously you'll see execute code here. This runs fire check. Now, very simple. When you have gun pause being set constantly, if the plane pause being set constantly, if the two are matching, if the gun is pointing at the plane, and you've fired, so if you fire and the gun is pointing at the plane, if that is true, if both values align to the same position, you get a hit. Now, in hit, you increment global plane hits, you get the global plane hits. You set text that uses that variable to set plane hits on screen. This is redundant. This is one of these is redundant anyway. I think this one, yeah. But that's how you get the variables. If local plane hits equals 5, which I've set here arbitrarily, then we'll run plane die, and otherwise then don't do anything and break the chain of execution. Plane die is just very simple. It'll temporarily hide the plane flying. It'll reset plane hits. It'll reset gun pause to middle, which is data-wise. It'll reset hits to 0, which is visual. It'll put the gun. It'll trigger the filter state of the gun middle back to visible so that the gun moves back to the middle. Delay for 200 milliseconds. And it'll show the plane again. So, it resets pretty smoothly for what it is. And that's the firing, that's the hit detection, that's the check. It's all a bit of a mess, I'm not gonna lie. This is just to kind of explain how it was done, but I know it's pretty poor. Yeah. I don't really know how I'm gonna try to make this coherent in a proper tutorial, but I'll try my best.